This is why I get so pissed off at power scalers and versus battlers. Y'all got some good cookies, I'm friends with some of you. But this... Writing, all art in general, is a subjective medium. When someone is performing literary analysis, they're doing something called giving a reading. They take all the evidence in a given work of art, literature, media, and then they use all that evidence to produce a conclusion. And the key thing about readings is that readings differ. Because art is subjective, two people will have two completely different readings of any given piece of media. And the act of literary analysis is comparing and contrasting those reads and figuring out sort of a deeper level understanding of the text. There is no objective understanding of the text. It's just examining the text and what it can mean to many people throughout many different moments of time. And that's what y'all are doing. No matter how much you try to tell me that you're not, that's what you're doing. You're doing literary analysis. Because if you were doing an objective science, your results would agree with each other. Scientific experiments sometimes do not agree with each other. That's usually because there is a fault in the experiment. But there's no experiment to run because these characters don't exist. If two people ever measure the same thing in a scientific experiment, they should get the same result. And if they're not, then they need to change the experiment. If they're not, it's not verifiable. Something has gone wrong and you can't draw a conclusion. So if I measure the speed of a projectile and you measure the speed of a projectile in a scientific experiment, we would come up with the same number. And then if we measure the force needed to break a wall, we can get an objective answer on whether or not that projectile can break that wall. But once again, there's nothing to measure. You're making assumptions. And so people who are doing versus battles come to different conclusions. And they come to different conclusions because there's nothing objective. You're just giving two different readings, and that's why people don't agree. The verdict is still out on some of the most popular versus battles, like Goku versus Superman. If it were objective, you would have had a conclusion by now. You are arguing, you are debating, you are making a case. That, too, is a subjective art. And I haven't even gotten into how versus battlers and power scalers measure speed wrong, measure density wrong, measure the force needed to destroy something wrong. They make a bunch of assumptions that are just wrong. They're just playing around with numbers without understanding them. And you know, all of this is fine. I don't give a flying fuck if you do this, if you play around with numbers and you feel like the smartest person in the world. But as soon as you come into one of my spaces and say that me or my friends are stupid because we're not doing things the way you do, that's a problem.